welcome back to the Wolverine Whisper. We're back for another episode. This is episode 9 of the show. As always, my name is Seth Berry, and I'm joined by Noah Poser and Ryan Kraus. And we're going to talk some Michigan basketball for you. Uh, Obviously, first weekend of basketball was a really good one for Michigan as they beat Montana in their first NCAA tournament game by a score of 74-55. Kind of saw the reemergence of Charles Matthews, coming off the ankle injury. He obviously hurt that against against Michigan State late in the season, and then he kind of worked his way back in the Big Ten tournament, and then really had a good game against Montana, scoring the 22. So that was good to see. He's really active, and then Michigan was able to handle Florida pretty easily, 64-49. A little choppy of a game early on, but as the game wore on in the second half, Michigan was able to really impose their will and pull away and actually held Florida to their lowest output of the season in terms of offensive scoring, and I believe held them to 33 or 34% shooting. After Florida hit 6 threes in the first half, Michigan was able to really lock down the perimeter in the second half, and I think it held them to something like 2 of 10 from 3 in the second half. So it was really good. Obviously, another really good defensive effort by Michigan. Jordan Poole was the leading scorer with 19 points in that game. Missed some shots, got hot at times. He's sporadic like he usually is, but he was aggressive and taking good shots. So I thought that was a good thing to take away from that game for Michigan. But of course, when you win by an average of 17 points, that's always a good thing in the first weekend, and really looking good going into the Sweet 16. So what were some of your guys' best takeaways from the first two games for Michigan in that first week?
So after this first weekend of the tournament, obviously Michigan moving on to the Sweet 16, playing Texas Tech, a team very similar to them, which will be a good matchup going forward. But looking back to last weekend, there's not really a whole lot there from a competitive standpoint. Michigan took care of Montana. They let them hang around maybe for a bit, but the game was never in doubt. And then you get to the Florida game, and again, Florida just hung around. It was a competitive game, but you never got the sense, so to speak, that Michigan was in any real danger throughout any point in that game. They played like themselves. They won both games, tough defense each time. Held Montana to 55, Florida to 49. And in the Montana game, they didn't shoot threes as good as Montana coming in. They were a 3-point shooting team, and Michigan did a really good job stopping them when it mattered. And then in the Florida game, Florida is a very good defensive team, held Michigan to just 64. But again, that speaks to the culture now at Michigan, where they're able to win games when they score 64 points, because they're going to hold another team like Florida to 49. They held Kevon Allen, Florida's best player, probably, to 8 points in that game. And like you said, Seth, after that hot shooting first half where they nailed 6 threes, they were really locked down on the perimeter from the second half. Florida only finished they did not finish very good from 3-point range. They finished 9 of 26, only made 3 in the second half. So all in all, Michigan did what they needed to do against teams that aren't as good as they aren't as talented as they are, and they did what they needed to do to get to the Sweet 16, and this is where the real work is going to begin against a team like Texas Tech.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's the third straight Sweet 16, and you sort of expect that from Michigan now. 10 years ago, you'd expect that from Michigan State every year. In Michigan, it's like they would struggle to get into the tournament, but now with what Beeline's done with the program, Sweet 16s, Elite 8s, Final Fours are expected, and he's right on track. Michigan looked like they did at the beginning of the year when they were playing non-conference teams and just blowing them out. And against Montana, there was no competition. There was one point where I was a little worried in the game. when it got to 8 points. I think the lead was 8 points, and then
That guy had that filthy layup when he did that little euro and then cut it to 8.
yeah,
But yeah,
and then
yeah. Then Michigan went on a big run.
yeah, I think they scored 8 straight points or something right after that, and
Yeah.
the game was never in question after that. So it was weird to see such a small lineup too. So Teskey was just manning the middle. I mean, he could stay at the free throw line and really not have to do much. But then, yeah, they took care of business against Florida. I think Nevada probably would have posed a few more problems for him. But, grinded out wins, and that's what you need in the tournament. You just got to win, survive, and advance. That's the motto. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think even though it wasn't clean for Michigan, maybe for 40 minutes both games. I mean, when you can win as comfortably as they did, I mean, I think that says a lot about them. Just being able to stay the course and then really, knock teams out at the end of the game, like they did with Florida. Livers dunk, to put them up 13 late in the game, really put an exclamation point on that. And Xavier Simpson with the great pass ahead. I think that's one thing Michigan I would like to see more of is even when they're up, kind of pushing the pace, at times when they can, because they really
so
like
true.
to. Yeah,
They love to slow it down, but I feel like that messes with their flow sometimes.
Yeah, it does. And I think we saw in the Big Ten tournament, against Michigan State, where Beeline talked about the shot selection, but I think they also try to kind of take the air out of the ball. And, kind of when you build a lead like that, you want to hold on to it and take time off the clock. But at the same time, if you're not getting good shots and not looking to score and not looking to run when you can and taking those easy opportunities, that you're going to let a team crawl back into the game.
Yeah, and guys start to tend to stand around, and then they're just not ready athletically. So.
Yep. Yeah. So I think that's one underrated part about Michigan's offense too. I think when they run, they're really good. Especially with you got shooters that fill the lane. Jordan Poole, John Teskey's like in shape this year. Like he can run the floor as a big man, really up and down. Doesn't seem to get too tired, really anymore. That kind of I think speaks to the conditioning work that he did in the offseason to get his body ready. But Liver's really good in transition. Matthews in the open floor, fast, and then you have Simpson, coming with the ball and making good decisions in transitions. It's kind of one thing I'd like to see a little bit more of. But yeah, just like you guys said, 2 good wins to begin the tournament. Like I said, Noah, now it's now it gets really challenging. Texas Tech, a little bit of a different animal, than Florida and Montana, obviously. But yeah, just looking at the numbers of that, the first thing that stands out in the Texas Tech game, looking ahead to the Sweet 16 on Thursday night there, the number 1 and number 2 defensive efficiency teams, according to the Ken Pomeroy rankings on kenpom.com. So, and then you go across the board on like all the defensive numbers, and all of them are still similar. I think Michigan holds teams like 29% from 3, and Texas Tech holds teams at 30%. And, just all the way across the board, they're so similar in their defense. So people are talking about, first to 60 wins or first to 50 wins or whatever. I don't know what it's going to be, but it definitely won't be a North Carolina Auburn, type of game. It's going to be.
Yeah, I feel like we say that, or, it's going to be first to 50, and then we'll be at like 75. And
then it's like a high scoring game. Yeah.
I'd be shocked.
Well, yeah. I'd be shocked too, but like these teams are capable offensively, right? I mean, like if you have like a Jordan Poole get hot, and then Ignis coming out early and hitting shots, and then Texas Tech has some guys who can shoot the ball too. Obviously, they have Culver, who's an NBA guy, but their other
lottery pick.
Yeah, rejected lottery pick in the mock drafts. But I mean, you have guys like Moretti, their point guard, who shoots 45% from 3, or one of their guards, and then Mooney, who shoots 38% from 3. So I mean, both teams have guys who are capable of knocking down shots, but I think they're just going to guard each other so well that points are going to be tough to come by. I think one of the biggest matchups is the Matthews and Culver matchup. Obviously, they Michigan likes to put Matthews on other teams' top players, and I think if he can kind of slow him down, it'll play a big part in Michigan being able to win probably a close game. But yeah, how do you guys see that matchup playing out? Against Texas Tech.
Well, like most people are saying, I think it's probably going to end up being a defensive game. Probably would guess that the game would be in the high 50s for both, maybe low 60s. And I think for this game, for Texas Tech, what it comes down to is how well everyone not named Jared Culver plays. Because obviously you have Jared Culver, a lottery pick in the upcoming NBA draft if he declares. So obviously that's going to be Michigan's number one priority, to take him out of his game and make other people beat them. So to me, it will come down to what a Mooney or a Moretti can do against that Michigan defense, whether that be shooting threes or driving game to the free throw line. Moretti himself is one of the best free throw shooters in the country. I think shooting around 90, something like 55 of 65 on the season. So just insane numbers. If he can get to the free throw line, obviously, he's probably going to make them. So that's going to be another big way that they can score points against Michigan. And then for Michigan, I think it comes down to how well Charles Matthews and company can defend against Culver, and also how well Jordan Poole can play. Obviously, he's coming off that Florida game where he didn't shoot the best 5 for 15, but he was aggressive, got to the basket a couple times, got hot at times, made 4 threes. Really, probably, if you throw out those shooting numbers, possibly his best game of the entire season. So I think if he can keep that momentum up, the game against Texas Tech, I think Michigan will be in a good spot as long as they defend as well as they can.
Yeah, I think the matchup Culver versus Matthews will probably be really fun to watch if you're just watching individuals. But yeah, like you guys said, Moretti can shoot pretty well. So if he sees a couple go in early, then it could lead to a little longer day. But Michigan's really good at defending the 3-point line. They have been all season. They usually get a hand up. Most times they're not out of position. And yeah, I think that as long as Michigan doesn't get in foul trouble and can keep their starting 5 out there and get Livers, 25 minutes, I think they'll be in pretty good shape. It's going to be a grinded out game. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be back and forth watching, a lot of points being scored. But, I mean, it'll still be fun to watch the individual matchups and see if they can come out on top.
Yeah, I think one thing you do worry about against a team like Texas Tech is, I watched one of their games against Kansas in the regular season, and if you don't get a hand up on their shooters, they're more than likely, going to make the shots. And I think Yaklich, must have given Michigan a really good talk at halftime, because Florida made some tough shots in the first half in the last game, but there were also some shots that were uncontested. And if we know one thing about Luke Yaklich, Michigan's defensive specialist assistant, he hates shots that are uncontested. That's his motto: contest everything. And they obviously did that in the second half and really held Florida down. But you really have to be locked in for 40 minutes defensively against Texas Tech and against, in a game that's going to be in a grinded out fashion like this. So yeah, I think that's, you guys made really good points in that aspect. I think, Noah, you talked about Jordan Poole. I think he's the biggest X factor in Michigan's offense, because he is so streaky, but if he gets hot, Michigan is a totally different offense, and he's being aggressive. But I like the game he played, because it kind of reminded me of a game Ignis had in the regular season where I think he was just coming off the Wisconsin game where he dropped, he didn't score at all. And then the next game against Minnesota, he shot 4 of 18, but he was taking good shots and being aggressive. and then the next game, I don't remember who it was, but he ended up having a really good game. So hopefully Jordan Poole will kind of follow that up, because I think his quality shots were good against Florida for the most part. And, if he continues to be aggressive, hopefully he'll see some of those shots go through the basket a little bit more often. And that's really going to help Michigan's offense if that happens. Another thing is if Michigan can limit their turnovers as well, whatever team limits their turnovers and wins a turnover battle in what should be a lower possession game, probably going to be one of the determining factors in the game as well. As well as keep Teskey out of foul trouble. With Texas Tech's length, that could be trouble too if you don't have any inside presence against them. So, yeah. Anything else you guys are want to hit on in that matchup, and then we can kind of talk about the tournament as a whole, how far Michigan can go, and just kind of look back at the tournament as a whole so far.
I mean, overall, this game, obviously.
We can give predictions too, with predictions on the game.
So, like we said, obviously this is going to be a defensive game. These teams are so evenly matched across the board. Obviously, there are just so many similarities when it comes to these two teams, especially on the defensive side. You have Texas Tech. They were one of the best teams in the Big 12. Big 12 regular season co-champions with Kansas State. You had Michigan, one of the best teams in the Big 10. Both of those conferences are really strong, top to bottom. So when it comes to picking this game, either team could win this game, and nobody would be surprised. I'll give the edge to Michigan by a score of 63-61. I think they'll just break that 60 mark. But either of these teams, if they were to advance in this game, would give the winner of Florida State, Gonzaga tons of problems. Both of these teams could easily make a run if they were to win this game. So this could very easily be one of the best games of this Sweet 16.
Yeah, I'd give the edge to Michigan. I think they'll win 68-64. Close. Maybe free throw shooting is a little bit of a problem with them putting the game on ice, but I'd say look for Matthews to have a big game. I think he gets up for these type of matchups, and he usually plays really well.
Yeah, speaking of the free throw shooting, I saw like a column. I don't remember who it was by, but they talk about Michigan's free throw shooting, and obviously that was a problem last year, and it was a problem really early this year. But then ever since that North Carolina game, it seems like they've made just about every single free throw that they've attempted. Obviously that's not the case, but it's gotten a lot better, is what I'm trying to say. And then there was they brought in, I think Beeline brought in, I'd have to go back and look at it, but some I don't know if it was a psychologist or whatever, but something to help them mentally, basically at the line, and have him talk to everyone. And I guess it helped. It had I guess I don't know if it had much to do with the physical, aspect of shooting the free throws. I think they got into him mentally. I don't know, and it seemed to work. But yeah, that was interesting to me that Beeline pulling out all the tricks in the bag there, and you got to do that as a coach sometimes. Just kind of reach out to people that you wouldn't normally expect to kind of fix a problem. And I thought that was really neat that he did that. But yeah, as far as prediction for this game, I have Michigan 66-62. Like we're just talking about, grinded out, low scoring game. I think Jordan Poole, like we talked about, I just feel a breakout game for him. I feel like will be able to lead the charge for Michigan and hit a few threes to allow them to edge Texas Tech out in this one. And before the tournament, I said Michigan would make the Final Four again out of that region, and I still see that as the case here. And I think they're playing well enough to do it. I think Michigan's taking a little bit of criticism for not finishing out the Big Ten regular season, not being able to get the Big Big Ten tournament title. But when you look at their season, I mean, they're still a 30-win team. I mean, they've clearly had a great season. And I was looking at the kind of the reseeding of like the teams, how they do on CBS Sports and ESPN. They kind of like reseed them, 1 through 16. Then Michigan at like 10, which I remember them doing that last year. Michigan was like really low too. They're like 12 or 14. I'm thinking like, it just seems like every time in this type of situation, whether it's preseason or whether it's in the tournament, like John Beeline's teams don't get the respect that they really deserve, but yet they seem to deliver every time in these situations. So I don't know if that's, a thing they talk about or whatever, but it's just interesting to me that, it seems like no one really picks them to go out and do something, and then they do it, especially the last 6 years. So, but yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts on.
I'll take that. I think Beeline
Yeah.
probably uses that too. I'm sure he
Yeah.
sees stuff like that and is like, "Look, guys, no one thinks we can beat these guys. Nobody thinks we can make it back to the Final Four."
Right.
And
It's just crazy because like they shouldn't be an underdog, but it feels like they are year in and year out. And I just think it's just because Beeline is so under the radar. He's just good guy. Doesn't say much. Always respects the other team. There's no really controversy surrounding Beeline, obviously. So it's like there's nothing really to talk about with him other than him being really nice and a good guy or whatever. But
yeah, all you saw like after the game last week was that Michigan players get like congratulating Michigan State, wishing them luck, and John Beeline wishing Michigan State luck. And
right. Mm-hmm.
what more can you ask for from a coach?
Right. Yeah, I mean that was really cool to see. Yeah, I was I'm glad you brought that up with the whole picture with Xavier Simpson telling Nick Ward with the picture there, good luck, and then Livers shouting out to, I think his he said get better Kyle for Kyle Arns or whatever when he was when they were out in the tunnel. So I mean obviously a lot of respect with that rivalry between the two coaches and both the programs. So that was neat to see. But overall, for the tournament, what's been your guys' favorite games? Obviously, we have to touch on the Duke UCF game with Aubrey Dawkins, dropping 32, and UCF just falling barely short, and one of the biggest upsets, obviously at this tournament, but in recent history, probably would have been. But yeah, the former Wolverine obviously went off and really shined in that game. So I don't know what have been your guys' favorite moments of the tournament so far.
So in this tournament, it seems like, at least from what I've seen based on social media, on Twitter and stuff, it seems like there's been a lot of people saying that this isn't the best tournament out of the last few years. I guess it lacks excitement, which I don't know if you guys feel that way, but I disagree with that.
If there's been lacks excitement by the good teams winning, then sure.
Or like maybe the blowouts. There's been, I feel like there's been some more blowouts than usual. But yeah.
I don't know. So in my view, there's obviously not been very many upsets. You have all the top 12 seeds are still in it, 3 of the 4 seeds, and then you have a 5 and a 12, and that 12 seed is Oregon, so that's not obviously the greatest Cinderella story that there has been over the past few years. But there's been a lot of close games where the lower seeded teams almost knocked the higher seed. Most of them obviously didn't happen. And so from that point, I could see why people think it's been boring so far. But then you have games like the Duke game. You have where UCF almost pulled that out. That probably, like you said, Seth, that would have been the biggest upset in probably quite a while. Obviously, the Virginia UMBC game will forever be in another category, but that would have been a crazy upset. I don't think any person who was actually thinking about the game thought that UCF would be in position to beat Duke. I think probably one of the best played games in the tournament. Obviously, you had the late controversy, but you had that moment. And I think another great moment in this tourney was, I thought a really underrated game was the Auburn New Mexico State game. I don't know if you guys watched that one.
Auburn really should have lost that game. I mean, it was up for grabs. Yeah.
So Auburn in this tournament has been really weird. Almost lost New Mexico State. I personally had New Mexico State winning that game. I thought they were really underrated going into the tourney at 30-4, and they just ran through the whack. But so obviously at that game, came down to the last shot, an air ball and a 3 to send Auburn to the next round. Then goes on and blows out Kansas. And I don't know many people saw that one coming. And they just play really fast. Like they're the complete opposite. Like you said, Auburn, North Carolina is going to be completely opposite from the Michigan Texas Tech game. That one's probably, you could say that one's first one to 100 will win that game. Both teams play fast. They push whenever is possible. You have North Carolina. They push off of made baskets. We've seen it time and time again. And then Auburn with Harper. Harper's probably could potentially be the fastest player in all of college basketball. He can get down the court in just a matter of a couple seconds. He just zooms by everybody, and he's done that multiple times in the tournament already. So I think overall there's been a lot of close upsets that didn't happen, like that Auburn-New Mexico State game. I think most of the games have been very competitive. We've had crazy moments like the Tennessee-Iowa game. Iowa almost making the largest comeback in tourney history before losing in overtime to Tennessee. So I think it's been a great tournament so far, despite the chalkiness of it, you could say. But I think that just sets up a very interesting last few games in this tournament, because now you've gotten down to the best of the best, and this is where seasons are going to be won or lost.
Yeah. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I haven't been able to watch a ton of the games, but I did like watching Florida and Nevada. I was trying to tune into that just to see what we were gonna see from those two teams, whoever advanced to play Michigan, and that was a fun game because Florida I think they were up like 15 points, and then Nevada started full court pressing them and slowly inching back closer, and then that was just a fun game to watch. And obviously the Duke UCF game, that was fun. I mean, that's what you ask for in the tournament, is games like that where you're on the edge of your seat. You don't know, like either team could win. So
And I sent you I think I sent in the group chat we have for our, for MSC, the video of UCF players in the locker room with, Johnny Dawkins talking to the team, and you can just, they're sobbing, like they were, like little children basically. But I mean, that was the emotion of it, I mean, it was just, it felt so real, and you kind of forget those moments of March Madness. You always think about the uplifting times and the crazy buzzer beaters or whatever, but then you see a moment like that where UCF literally had that ball, on every part of the rim on those last two shots and just couldn't get it to go down. It's just like such a heartbreaking feeling for anyone that's been a part of sports. But I mean, you amplify that, times 10, if you haven't obviously played at that, at that level and that stage, and then talking about having a chance to beat, a great Duke team. Just really, I mean, just the whole emotional swings of that game were just insane. So that was fun. But
and UCF might have helped out the rest of the teams that'll end up playing Duke. I mean, they sagged off a lot of the guys, and
they didn't just sit. I mean, they were literally not even going out there.
yeah.
And like they were just everyone in the paint. Like they would not come out on Trey Jones, and it got in his head. Like he made one late, but other than that, he wasn't even close.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
What do you guys think about? Point. What do you guys think about Zion's late drive to the basket? What are your thoughts on what went down on that play?
They sent the guy flying, and there probably should have been a whistle either way, block or charge.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was a charge. I just think the guy he was kind of going to go down easily there, I think. So I don't know. I think I'm okay with the no call there.
Well, it's like
But
the LeBron thing. Zion is
yeah,
bigger than everybody on the court
right.
except
But
Taco. But I
yeah,
mean,
on the free throw though, Barrett definitely pushed off on Dawkins. I mean, going up for that rebound,
hmm
I mean, even the slice of push-offs, going up for a rebound throws you off balance, and Dawkins wasn't able to grab it. I think that was the most blatant missed call there, um, in terms of that. So, what about you, Noah?
I mean, when I was watching that game, the moment I saw Zion drive to the basket and knock down that UCF guy, I thought right away that it was a charge. And it kind
Mm-hmm.
of looked like he extended his arm to sort of
Yeah.
knock him down on the way to the basket. And then
Mm-hmm.
obviously that led to the fifth foul on Taco Fall, which, I mean, that's a fair call. But obviously that set up the whole situation on the missed free throw for him to be in the position to not be on the court. And it sort of set up the whole RJ Barrett push off to get the offensive board and tip in. That wouldn't have happened if Taco Fall would have been on the court. So
Yeah.
obviously that's not the way that they wanted their season to end. You also had the basket on the other end that was literally in the basket. I don't know. There was no way I thought that would come out of the basket once I saw that shot going down. But I mean, I don't know if you can really blame this one on calls. I mean, you had that questionable review earlier where they were debating whether or not the shot clock should have been reset.
And I don't think that ball, I don't think it hit the rim, but I also don't think there was enough to overturn it. So I was okay with that too. And then the alley oop that UCF missed, that Dawkins had out of his hands. That would have been the game right there. And
I thought they were going to lose the moment that happened.
Yeah. Oh, me too. I was like, oh, that was it. And then Duke hit that three. I'm like, that's gonna haunt him right there.
When you're the underdog in these games and you're in these games, you have to execute on every single pass, every single shot. You have to be perfect in what you do. Yep. And that is just too big of a blunder to make at that point in the game. Yep. It's a 5-point swing. You would have been up 6. Instead, they knocked down a 3 on the other end. You're only up 1.
Yeah.
So I think that's ultimately what people should be talking about when it comes down to why UCF lost that game. But overall, it was a great game. Probably the best game in the entire tournament. And overall, I think that the better team won the game.
Yeah.
So that's what it comes down to.
And it's just more of an unfortunate play than anything. It is just ball slipped out of his hands on the alley-oop. I mean, it was a 2-on-1. I was like, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh, I'll lob that. It's Dawkins. He's super athletic. Usually finishes those. But, yeah, that was a tough way to end that one. But then Maryland LSU, was a good game as well. I don't know if you guys caught that one, but that was good. Big shots down the stretch.
Tremont Waters is amazing.
Yeah, I don't know how he got that up and nobody, no deflection or anything.
Well, they sealed off Fernando coming on the weak side. It was just enough to where he couldn't get over there. And I think what's the other big guy's name? He was over there too.
Jalen Smith.
Yeah, Smith. Yeah, he was over there too and almost blocked it. But I mean,
that was inches away from being blocked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and Waters is he's one of those guys for LSU. Get him the ball and he'll go make a play. Late. He's that good. I can tell he's going to be good when I think Michigan played him early in the season last year and lost. And that was it was an early non-conference loss. But I'm like, this guy's really good. But it turned out to be that way. But then you have them matching up with Michigan State, which should be a good one. And I don't we were talking about the Sweet 16 about not a lot of Cinderellas. I kind of like that. By the time we get to the Elite Eight, or I want to see I don't know about you guys, but I want to see the Blue Bloods play. I want that as much talent as I can possibly see on the court. I want Zion versus, Cam Johnson, Duke, North Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee this year. Tennessee's not a blue blood, but really good team. But I want those elite level teams playing each other. That's kind of how I feel about that. It's nice to have a Cinderella in there once in a while. Loyola last year, but ultimately, I want to see the most talent on the floor that I can possibly digest, and I think that's good for basketball. I think. So.
I don't know. I kind of feel like, especially last year, I think talent. That's the word that sort of gets me, because how do you determine who exactly is the best talent? Like that Loyola Chicago team last year, they were very talented. You had obviously Custer, Towns, that was a really good team. They deserved to be in the Final Four.
I mean, yes, I should classify talent like, Loyola has some really like talented players, but sometimes it's about like who can run faster and who can jump high. Like I think that's really exciting to watch for me. Just like the whole excitement of the pure athleticism, on each team. I think that's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, I understand that, and obviously, again, I don't know many people who would turn down a Duke North Carolina rematch. Obviously, that would be great, but it's always nice to have like the Loyola Chicago. And then obviously, years ago, you had the Duke and you had Butler with Gordon Hayward, and that game's probably one of the greatest championship games in NCAA history.
Yeah,
Butler almost pulled off that run, but obviously, with this tournament turning out how it is, with the chalkiness, you're gonna see the best of the best and the teams who have been the best throughout the season. So, like you said, Seth, that's really good for basketball. It should provide a great product. The fans are probably going to love to see it. You're going to have tons of eyes on these matchups, tons of fans for all of these teams. It's going to definitely be good to watch.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be exciting, and I don't even know if we're going to get to the point where, I mean, you talk about Duke, obviously, a really good chance to get to the Final Four, but Virginia Tech's not a joke. I mean, Virginia Tech can shoot the ball a lot better than Duke, and if they have a hot day, they could in a one and done format, they could beat them. So same thing with Auburn, North Carolina. If Auburn plays like they did against Kansas, they're going to be tough to beat. So you still have some potential for upsets in there. It's going to be fun to watch. So
Michigan could. They could have a rematch with Florida State.
Yeah. I mean,
did they play in the Elite Eight last year too?
They did. Yep. That's what I had. That's what I have in my bracket. Actually, is a Michigan Florida State rematch. I think Florida State will give Gonzaga a lot of problems. It'll be a good game, but I got Florida State edging that. But yeah.
You also, in that game, at least from what I saw, Phil Kofer, obviously after what happened earlier in the week with his dad passing away, he won't be in that game. So that will make it harder for them as well.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, there's going to be there's going to be some really good matchups and good games. I think this will be, if people were complaining about early in the tournament, I think this will make up for it. The Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games. I think you have some really good matchups here. Michigan just like I said, a 2-point favorite, so it really could go either way. I think Michigan State's a 7-point favorite against LSU, which I think is crazy. I think that's way too high. I think that's going to be a good game. And then, like I said, talking about Virginia Tech, Auburn, and then a lot of people think Oregon can give Virginia a game with the way they're playing right now. So, I mean, if we haven't had that level of drama yet, hopefully I think we'll get there, or maybe we'll get there this weekend. We'll have to see. But obviously, I was looking forward to the games, and Michigan with the 9:39 tip off Thursday against Texas Tech, and then hopefully Saturday, in the Elite Eight against either Florida State or Gonzaga. So as always, I'm Seth Berry along with Noah Poser and Ryan Krause, and thanks for listening in to episode 9 of the Wolverine Whisper time.
Go Blue.
Go Blue.